Good morning, Lynn.
Good morning, Amy. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Hi, Tanya.
Trying to flip through and see everybody who's all
It's,
good morning,
it's a
Carol.
little,
Got few people with their cameras on.
Good
Hey,
it's a
Nick, you
morning.
made
little,
it. Hi, Nick.
a little cold this morning.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it was. Good morning, Simon. Good to see.
Good morning, Amy.
Amy, your hair looks really cute.
Thank you. I don't know who said that because I can't see everybody's picture, but I appreciate it.
It was me, Katie.
Oh, hi, Katie.
Oh, hi.
Hi, Katie. Did you recover
Long
from
time no
last
see.
night?
Yeah, I woke up at like 4:30 this morning thinking about it.
How much did you guys raise last night?
What's that?
The total dollar amount you raised last night.
Oh, it's hard. We're working on the final numbers, but I think I mean, we were probably close to 20, if not a little bit more, just depending on once we put together the registration fees, but we have to take out like the food and the bar tab and stuff. So just depending on, I don't know exactly net wise, but I'm gonna say we're probably pretty close to 15
It,
net proceeds to toys for tots. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, it was fun.
it was an awesome program.
It
Thank
went fast. I was really surprised on the timing. We did a good job keeping it
Yeah,
moving.
I think it went. I'm just going to say everybody that's joining and on the call, I'm going to give a shout out to Oregon Mortgage Association and their committee. They raised what Katie had just mentioned for over 15,000, right? Is that what you said? Well,
Yeah,
it depends. Yeah.
easily.
For Toys for Tots.
Oh, wow. That's
I
cool.
was fortunate to be involved this year, and it was a lot of fun. It was a big group. And all everybody from the real estate industry. So not everybody, but made up the most of the audience, everybody that raised the money.
Yeah, absolutely. It was really cool.
Yeah. And Katie is the one in charge. She
Well, I don't
leads
know
us
about
all.
that. I'm 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 good at facilitating and giving direction.
Okay, we're starting to slow down and people getting coming into the waiting room. So we don't get behind. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody so that when our speakers, because we already are sharing their screen, so that when they speak that their faces will pop up, I believe. You'll see them because right now I don't see them on my main screen as everybody's kind of changing out. But I am Amy Corey with Western Title, and I am a sales executive here at Western. You will see faces if you scroll through the attendees of many of our employees as they are joining us. I do just want to, Tanya Silke has worked with many of our presenters today. Tanya Silke is an escrow officer here, and she's on the call, and she is the one that coordinated and reached out to our amazing speakers from the Lane County Assessment and Taxation Office. So we are going to hear about farm and forest presentation. And let me just make sure that I have muted everybody. If you notice that I have not muted you, if you can go ahead and mute yourself. And for our speakers, I may have automatically muted you. So if you wouldn't mind unmuting yourself. There we go. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to them, and I will continue to admit people into the room. And then also, just in case I forget at the end, I am recording this call, so we will have this up on our YouTube screen. You will all receive a link to it, as well as your CE will be sent separately. And those CEs you should expect in your inbox by the end of the week, as well as a follow-up email with a link to the YouTube presentation. So if you don't see that, reach out to me. I am your contact. Also, if you have any questions after this, please reach out and we can put you in connection with our speakers. And we look forward to the presentation. I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over.
All right. Hello.
So we will just quickly introduce ourselves and then just jump right into it. So
My name is Jessica Swygart. I'm been with Assessment and Taxation for a little over 3 years now. 1 year I spent as a residential appraiser, and the other 2 years property tax management specialist. And I've been training with Sarah to be backup for farm forest specialist for about a year now.
Good morning, I'm Patrick Inman, and I've been with the county for almost 19 years and in the farm and forest portion of it for the last 12 roughly.
my name is Sarah Inman, and I have been with Wayne County for a little over 10 years, and I have been the farm forest specialist for the last 8 years.
Hey, good morning. I'm Dan Roderick. I've been a property appraiser here at Lane County for a little over 9 years, and I've been a farm and forest appraiser for 5 years.
So, all right, so we are going to jump into it right now. So today we will be talking about farm and forest deferral programs. Farm and forest deferral programs that are available to Lane County property owners. We will go over qualifications, requirements, benefits, and the consequences. We do have someone who is watching and managing the chat, so if any questions come up, feel free to put them into the chat and we will do our best to answer them. All right, so some history about the farm and forest programs. In 1953, legislation mandated farm reappraisal. The farmland values were determined to be excessive compared to incomes, particularly in areas with urban influence. In 1961, farm zone special assessment was allowed with a 5-acre minimum. In 1963, special assessment was allowed for both EFU and non-EFU farmland. In 1967,
It's blank, doesn't open a thing, avoid that one.
In 1967, the $500 yearly income requirement was put
Yes,
in
you're saying what,
EFU and non-EFU.
what about it?
In 1973, yearly income requirements for EFU was removed. In 1992, non-EFU income requirements of minimum of 650 to a maximum of 3,000 were put into place, which is the same as it is today. In 2004, small tract forest land deferral program was created. Why is it important? Special assessments were introduced to encourage property owners to maintain their farm and forest lands, offering tax reductions for those who meet specific requirements. This has led to strong interest from property owners and has played a key role in promoting sustainable farming, responsible forestry management, and land conservation. By meeting forestry and farming requirements, property owners are eligible to receive a reduction in assessed value of land, which lowers their property tax liability. These programs aim to balance sustainable land management with the preservation of natural resources, supporting both environmental stewardship and economic benefits for landowners. The success of these programs has promoted legislative changes and the creation of new programs such as wildlife habitat and conservation easement. And here are some Lane County statistics. And a couple that I was going to point out is for EFU farm deferral, we have 133,905 acres. Non-EFU farm deferral, we have 18,089 acres. Designated forest deferral, 104,049 acres. Small tract forest land, 58,666 acres. And highest and best use forest, 636,866 acres. The Farm and Forest Division is responsible for ensuring that all these accounts are properly maintained, working within the existing statutes and administrative rules to manage the assessment of the valuation process. So the different special assessment programs that Lane County participates in are designated forest, small tract forest land, exclusive farm use, non-EFU farm use, wildlife habitat, and conservation easement.
All right, now we're gonna talk about farm to fork.
She showed up down, but this never gets easy.
Sorry, can we mute everybody? So we're gonna talk about farm deferral now, both EFU and non-EFU farm deferral programs. Farm deferral program is gonna be the most common deferral program you see in Lane County. Today we're gonna go over just a quick overview of the different farm deferral programs and the differences between the two, relevant ORSs and OARs for the farm deferral programs, the different qualification requirements for both deferral programs, the consequences of disqualification and impact on the property owners, and important things to consider for new owners and buyers of the property who are either already in farm deferral or want to be in it. One of the main things to keep in mind about the different farm deferral programs is that they must be in current use. Current use means that the land must be actively employed in approved and recognized farming practices. If a farm is not being actively employed in an improved and recognized farming practice, then they do not qualify to be in either program. We want to note that if someone is interested in one of the farm deferral programs, but the property is not currently in use, we still recommend that they reach out to our department with any questions so we can help set them up for success for being in the program in the future. The DOR's definition of farm use per ORS 308A.056 is as follows. The current use of land for the primary purpose of generating profit through raising, harvesting, and selling crops, feeding, breeding, managing, and selling livestock, dairying and selling dairy products, growing cultured Christmas trees, boarding, equestrian training. It is important to note that pleasure horses for the landowner are excluded from this ORS and will not go towards the qualifying as farming practice. Tax sales within the stable also do not qualify towards meeting the income requirement. You can find more information on the different qualifying farm use practices with ORS 308A.056, but these are the more common practices you'll see here in Lane County. So the different farm deferral programs. We've got EFU, exclusive farm use, and non-EFU, non-exclusive farm use. The key factor in determining which farm deferral program a property qualifies for is its zoning designation. I've gathered this information from Arlen. As you can see, the zoning categories differ. For EFU farm deferral, only properties zoned in exclusive farm use are eligible. For non-EFU farm deferral, properties in any other zoning category may qualify, provided that they meet the program's requirements. Please note that our office does not determine the zoning. We simply are notified by the relevant authority. Farm deferral qualifications. Some of the more basic farm deferral qualifications that apply for both deferral programs are utilizing the land with the intent to make a profit. Farm income must be calculated on acre for acre basis. For example, an owner of 6.5 acre parcel cannot generate $650 of income from just 2 acres and apply that income to qualify for the entire 6.5 acre parcel of farm deferral. All acres included in the deferral program must also be actively contributing to the income. The value of the products consumed by the owner personally or within the farm operation can satisfy up to 49% of the income requirement. For example, if the total income requirement is $650, then up to $318.50, which is 49% of the total, can be attributed to the personal consumption. The personal use of land primary for pleasure or horses does not qualify for farm use. EFU farm deferral. Other qualifications for the EFU farm deferral are, it must be zoned EFU. The land must be currently used and have been used in the previous year for farm use. They must be meeting the basic qualifications that we went over in the previous slide. A gross income from farming activity must be made. However, the net income could indicate an overall loss from the activity due to expenses. We don't require the income verification as we do for non-EFU farm deferrals, but the DOR reserves the right for us to request it if we believe a property may not be in compliance with the requirements or in order to demonstrate the intent to make a profit. They must also fully utilize the land for farming activities. For example, having just one cow on 40 acres of productive farmland would likely not be enough as a typical farming practice to qualify the entire 40-acre parcel. Non-EFU farm deferral. For non-EFU farm deferral, they must meet all of the basic requirements that we spoke about previously. In addition, the land must be in current agricultural use and acres being used or applied for must have been actively farmed for the previous 2 years. Income requirements must be met 3 out of the last 5 years. The owner must provide copies of Schedule F forms filed with the state showing the profit for those years. If there are tenant farmers, they also must meet those same requirements. Applications. Per ORS 308A.077, applications must be filed on or before April 1st of the year for which the assessment is requested for non-EFU farm deferrals. The zoning of your property determines which application you will need to complete. EFU for anything zoned exclusive farm use and non-EFU for anything with any other kind of zones. A $100 non-refundable application fee for the non-EFU farm deferral is required before an on-site inspection will be done. EFU applications do not require the $100 application fee. Applications are available through Assessment and Taxation website, the GOR's website, or by contacting our office and requesting an application from one of our specialists. We always recommend that if an owner is interested in applying, they give our office a call and speak with one of our farm forest specialists for more information on the process. We can take a look at their property and guide them through the application to complete the correct forms and applications to ensure that they understand the programs. After a completed application and supporting documents have been received, a farm forest appraiser will do an on-site inspection. Income questionnaires. Per OAR 150-308-1050, the assessor is required to periodically mail out owners who are receiving special assessments through
CBS Thursday, 8/7 Central.
through non-EFU farm rural income questionnaires to assure that both use and income requirements are being met. An owner must be able to show that they're meeting the yearly income requirement for 3 out of the 5 years and utilizing the land to remain in compliance. A Schedule F is an IRS form to report farm income and expenses. For ORS 308A.071, Section 4, landowners must provide copies of their Schedule Fs to show the income from the farming when it is requested by the assessor. The burden of proof falls upon the person claiming for the special assessment for the land. Failure to provide the requested documents may result in the property being disqualified. When the property is being leased to a tenant farmer or lessee, they are required to supply copies of their Schedule Fs when completing the income questionnaire. Failure to provide the requested documentation may result in your property being disqualified. Your yearly income requirements for 6.5 acres or less is going to be $650. Yearly income requirements for 30 acres or more is $3,000. A couple of things to keep in mind when it comes to the income requirements are you must deduct the original purchase price from the gross sale price of livestock sold. Firewood is not considered a farm product, and the income requirement amount is the gross income, not the net income. Here you can see that the income requirements are pretty basic. Once again, 6.5 acres is gonna be six or less will be $650. Anything between 6.5 acres and 30 acres is gonna be $100 per acre. And then anything 30 acres or more is gonna be $3,000. Potential additional tax. For ORS 308A.083, potential additional tax must be notated on any accounts that are receiving the special assessment. Once the notation has been added to the account, it will remain on there until the tax liability has been paid on the account and there is no longer any potential additional tax. Is it in forest or farm deferral? The assessment and taxation website is one way you can confirm the property is currently in a farm or forest deferral program. That information can be found through the property account information portal. The RLID website is another way you can confirm if a property is currently in a farm or forest deferral program. That information can be found through the standard property search, then viewing the detailed property report.
All right, good morning. We're going to talk a little bit about our inspection process. So shortly after April 1st, our farm forest appraisers will begin doing their on-site inspections. When doing this, the appraisers will verify that the property use matches what their application says. This could be checking for livestock or various crops. For example, if the application says that the income is being made from raising or selling cows, then when the appraisers go onto this site, the appraisers should see cows on the property. They should see things like quality fences and corrals and whatnot to be able to hold these livestock in. If everything looks good, then the appraiser will note it on their paperwork along with their diagrams and photos and turn this in for review. If there's no evidence that supports their application, then the appraiser will try to contact the owner to get more information. Some reasons that we do inspections, applications are the biggest reason probably, depending on the year. As previously stated, when new applications are submitted, we do a site visit to confirm that the property meets the requirements for the program that the owner is applying for. Requests for reviews. These can be initiated from one of our specialists or one of our appraisers. Callbacks are properties that we have previously inspected and for some reason or another require another visit. How we determine our land values. Farm values are a little different than forest, where farm values, we send out surveys each year to farm properties to try to gather information, helping us track farm rents and rent per acres on our properties. Once we can gather this data, we then can calculate the values for the upcoming year. Disqualifications. Once you're in the program, reasons that EFU properties can be removed from this program are for EFU zone properties. Special assessment is because the owner disqualification from special assessment is because of no longer using the property for agricultural purposes, either due to non-use or activities that are not considered typical farming. If disqualified, land in an EFU zone may be assessed back taxes for up to 10 years. If there is a change in use, such as building improvements not allowed on EFU zoned land, subdivisions, or similar actions, the deferred taxes then become due and are collectible. Back taxes are generally postponed, meaning that they are not collected immediately, but remain as a potential tax liability on the account. Under certain circumstances, they may become collectible in the future, but they can also remain on the account indefinitely. Non-EFU disqualification reasons. If a property fails to meet farm deferral qualifications, such as not being actively farmed, not being maintained to produce income or similar issues. Non-EFU disqualifications will go back for their income, not meeting income requirements for 3 out of 5 years. If the property owner fails to submit the income questionnaire, they will be disqualified. If an owner fails to provide evidence of income when requested by our department. Statutorily, evidence should be provided through copies or forms filled with the property owner's federal income tax returns, such as a Schedule F. Non-EFU properties must have a potential additional tax for up to 5 years, as opposed to 10 years like EFU properties. Postponed farm tax. When an account has been disqualified from either EFU or non-EFU farm deferral, when the back tax liability is not due and collectible, it will become a postponed farm tax. Postponed farm taxes can be paid at any time, but as long as the land can go back to being farmed per statute, it cannot be extended to the tax rolls. These are typically paid when there is an ownership change. Keep in mind that farm deferral is calculated on an acre by acre basis. If only some acres are disqualified, the remaining acres will still be active in the program. Additionally, a property can be enrolled in multiple programs, so you may also see other programs listed, such as designated forest on the tax statement.
Question.
All right.
Rhonda has asked, when the appraiser goes out to do the owner, do the owners have to have ID tags for the cattle purchased? And is that deducted from the gross for a net income?
The deduction does not happen, and we don't need to see ID tags for the livestock either. We just want to see that if their application says that they're making income off of cattle, then we want to see cattle on the property. Does that answer the question?
Yeah. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Due and collectible. When an account has been disqualified for either EFU or non-EFU farm deferral, and the back tax liability is due and collectible, it will become a D-class zoned farm or D-class unzoned farm tax, and it will be listed under current tax by district on the right side of the tax statement. You will typically see this when something like a subdivision has been recorded or a non-farm dwelling has been approved. So what should a buyer know about farm deferral before purchasing the home? A key point to emphasize is that any potential additional tax liability associated with the property under special assessment is tied to the land and not the owner. This means that if the property is disqualified, the current owner may be liable for the full back taxes regardless of how long they have owned the property. New owners should fully understand the special assessment, as they must comply with the use requirements of both programs to avoid risk of disqualification. Properties in non-EFU zones must also be aware that they may be required at any time to provide evidence of meeting the minimum farm income requirements for 3 out of 5 years. And now for some forest information.
All right, so we have 2 forest programs in Lane County. So designated forest land versus small tract forest land. For designated forest land, you will hear us or see us refer to it as DFL a lot. So for this program, there is a 2-acre minimum of contiguously adequately stocked marketable timber. There is a 5-year look back period if disqualified. Ownership changes do not trigger a new application to be completed. The program will stay with the land as long as it remains in compliance. Designated forest deferral is subject to forest product harvest tax. when it has been logged. Small tract forest land, or STF, has a 10-acre minimum of marketable timber with a maximum 5,000 acres in the state of Oregon. There is a 10-year look back if disqualified. For this program, ownership changes do trigger a new application to be completed. And this program is subject to forest harvest tax and the severance tax when it is logged. How to apply. Applications must be filed on or before April 1st of the first year for which the assessment is requested. You can get an application by reaching out to our department or on the Department of Revenue's website. If applying for small tract forest land, the property must be previously designated prior to being approved. This means that if the property is not currently in any sort of timber program, the owner must also apply for designated forest deferral at the same time. We always recommend that if an owner is interested in applying, they give our office a call and speak with one of our farm forest specialists for more information on the process. Once our office has received a completed application and supporting documents, one of our farm forest appraisers will go out to the property to do an on-site inspection. Qualifications. Your land must meet the stocking and species requirements of the Oregon Forest Practices Act. The Department of Revenue requires that 80% of the stocking must be of a marketable species. So that's going to be the Doug firs, grand fir, cedar, and pine. And only 20% of the stocking can be from hardwoods and non-marketable species. So that's going to be the oaks, maple, alder, and ash. If land does not meet the minimum stocking requirements, the landowner can submit a written reforestation plan with their application. Must have at minimum 20%, but not less than 2 acres of what is being applied for be planted by December 31st of the first assessment year. Each year after, a minimum of 20% of the area must be planted. At the end of the 5th year, 100% of the area in the plan must be replanted. Anything not meeting the requirements at that time will be disqualified. The other requirement for and qualification for these programs, the land must be properly managed with the intent to harvest. Qualifications. ORS 321.359 lists the circumstances that could trigger the disqualification of designated forest deferral or small tract forest land. A couple of things that result in disqualification are the property is no longer adequately stocked, change of land use. An example of that would be a home site being added to the property, approval of a non-farm dwelling. Even if the property is in a timber deferral program and the property receives approval for a non-farm dwelling, there is a permanent disqualification to the entire tax lot. A subdivision is recorded, or the property has some kind of easement or CC&Rs that prohibit the property from being logged.
All right, so I'm Dan, and I'm going to talk a little bit about, excuse me, our forest inspections, our forest values, and briefly about a couple of the programs that we work with here. So for the forest inspections, in order to ensure that a property is meeting the program requirements, there must be a physical inspection of the property done at times. When we inspect a forest property, there are different stages of forest growth that we're looking for. First is going to be the seedlings. These are replanted after a harvest and need to be planted at over 200 trees per acre. Most of your larger timber producers are going to be planting around 400 per acre. Next is the free to grow, and this is done 5 years after the replanting inspection to verify that the trees have survived grown up to around 5 feet tall or so, and have made it out of all the surrounding brush, blackberries, where they should be able to grow freely in the future. And then next there's the mature, and these are going to be your large trees, and they'll be able to be harvested sometime in the near future. All ages of trees have different stocking requirements, where the amount of trees necessary to qualify lowers as the trees get larger. Also, the soil class can change the amount of trees needed to qualify, because some soils grow more trees than others do. And for reviews, these reviews or inspections can be initiated for different reasons. It may be that someone in the office may notice from an aerial view that a property that should have 40 acres of trees seems to only have about half of that. So we would need to go out and find out what the reason for that is. It may be just that the area was recently replanted and we're not able to see the small trees from an aerial view. Or maybe that they don't actually have all the trees that the property requires to qualify, and the property should be all or partially disqualified. A review could come from an appraiser at our office being on the property for a different reason, generally some kind of new construction permit. And while they were there, they questioned the stocking amounts of the trees that were on the property, resulting in a forest appraiser needing to inspect that property. Another reason could be from the Oregon Department of Forestry provided list of properties that were logged recently. When we get these, we need to go out to verify that they have been replanted within 2 years of that harvest. Then there's the callbacks, where for some reason we were out there before and thought the property should be reviewed again later to confirm the property is still qualified. The free to grow inspection done 5 years after the replanting inspection is our most common type of callback review. And then for our land values for the designated forest land, especially assessed values, are based on typical prices paid for the forest land. These values are supplied to the counties by the Oregon Department of Revenue, and these values are typically much lower than the real market values. The annual property tax for designated forest land is calculated on 100% of the specially assessed value. There is no severance tax paid when the state, there is no severance tax paid to the state when timber is harvested. The annual property tax for small tract forest land is calculated on 20% of the specially assessed value. The landowner pays severance tax when timber is harvested, which is calculated in dollars per 1,000 board feet of harvested logs, also known as MBF. The forest products harvest tax is due on all timber harvests from private and public lands, regardless of if the property is in special assessment program or not. The tax is based on volume, and the measurement used is MBF, 4,000 board feet. And the measurement for a board foot is 1 inch by 12 inches by 12 inches. However, the first 25 MBF are exempt from this tax. The tax consequences. If property becomes disqualified, the owner of the property should expect these tax consequences. For a property receiving special assessment in the designated forest land program, the owner must repay the amount of tax reduction for up to 5 years when disqualified. For a property in the small tract forest option, the landowner must repay the amount of the tax reduction for up to 10 years when disqualified. And this can be a bigger one because it goes back twice as long and is a bigger reduction from the designated forest land. Once land is disqualified from the small tract forest land, it cannot qualify again for 5 years. And these amounts become due on the next tax year. Some cautionary notes. So once a property owner opts into the small tract forest program, it cannot be removed from the program until it is sold or transferred to a new owner. In which case the new owner must reapply or the use of the property changes. Forest land special assessment goes with the land, not with the owner. In other words, if a parcel of land receiving forest land special assessment is transferred or sold, and later the county determines that the land no longer meets the qualifications for special assessment, the tax liability is the responsibility of the new owner, regardless of when they purchased the property. And so there's a couple other programs that are available that we don't work with as much, but they are offered here. First is the Wildlife Habitat Conservation and Management Program. The Oregon Legislature created the Wildlife Habitat Program to offer a property tax incentive to private landowners who want to provide wildlife habitat on their properties instead of, or in addition to, farming, growing timber, or other land uses.
Hey, Dan, I have a question.
What's that?
Eileen has asked, I have a question about taxes. Taxes deferred have to be paid at some point. So when a property is sold and the taxes have been deferred for 30 years, who and when pays those deferred taxes?
So as long as the property remains in compliance, it will continue to receive that special assessment. An ownership change would not necessarily trigger for a disqualification.
Did that answer the question, Eileen?
All right. So the next there is the conservation easement. Now, a conservation easement means a non-possessory interest of a holder in real property, imposing limitations or affirmative obligations, the purposes of which include retaining or protecting natural, scenic, or open space value of real property, ensuring its availability for agricultural, forest, recreational, or open space use, protecting natural resources, maintaining or enhancing air or air quality, or preserving the historical, architectural, archaeological, or cultural aspects of real property. For anyone wondering what they would owe if their property was disqualified, estimates for additional taxes due for disqualification of a specially assessed property can be obtained through your assessment and taxation office. There must be a form filled out stating what property you would like to have estimated, and there is a $100 fee that must be paid before the estimate can be processed. The estimate should be available within a few business days of the form and fee being received. All right, and so there are several different resources available for people with questions about these different deferral programs. General information regarding a specific property's current status and or issues involving continued qualification can be directed to the appropriate county assessor's office. General information questions can be obtained through the Oregon Department of Revenue's website. General farming and forestry questions can be answered by the OSU Extension Service for a local area. And the Oregon Department of Forestry local or regional offices are a great resource. Some additional resources that can be used here at Lane County are going to be our Lane County website, a farm and forest specialist in the assessment taxation office, and you can also contact us through our Lane County email, farmforest@lanecountyor.gov. And so that's going to conclude our presentation. And now we can open it up for any questions that you guys might have.
I've got another question here from Len. If the deferred taxes stay with the land and the land is sold and the new owner decides not to continue the deferral, just this question, do they have to pay the past tax that were deferred?
Unfortunately, yes. So whoever the current owner is at the time of the disqualification is responsible for that back tax liability.
Did that answer your question, Len?
Feel free to
Yes, yes,
unmute.
yes, it did. So I guess business people need to, or owners need to know that when they go in the farm deferral program, they're actually incurring a liability for the property.
Correct.
And if it's been deferral for 10 years, that could be a significant liability for future owners.
Well, so there's state statutes. So depending on the program, the look back period is going to be either 5 years, but it can go up to 10 years.
Are you able to, would you be able to provide an amount that would be, that's been deferred, and how much would be due if the new owner decided not to continue the farm deferral?
We can do that. It's an estimate that we can do. We can calculate what that back tax liability would be. And we have forms available if anyone's wanting to have that done. We do charge $100 fee though for doing that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And Fred has a question, why 10 years back for STF versus 5 years back for DFL?
So that is because of the savings difference in small tract forest land compared to designated forest deferral. And so that's the way the Department of Revenue looks at it. Just because the savings is so much larger for small tract properties compared to designated.
A quick question, is it possible to get a copy of the slides at the end afterwards?
Yeah. Yeah, we can get that over to Amy.
Yeah, I will send that out with a link to the recording. It'll be sent to everybody that registered.
And Tanya is confirming, is the back tax liability up to a certain time frame based on which program?
Correct. Yep. So small tract forest land and EFU farm deferral, there is a 10-year look back period. For designated forest deferral and non-EFU farm deferral, it's a 5-year look back period. And that calculation is the difference between what the taxes were and what they would have been had it not been in that deferral program for those years.
And then Rhonda's asking, all taxes owed on a property have to be paid through escrow to be able to record in the new owner's name, correct? Oh, and it looks like Tanya's answering, escrow will always ask agents buyers if this is to be eliminated. So it looks like she's answering that.
Did everybody see that in the chat? Tanya says that escrow will always ask agents buyers if this will be eliminated. Please watch for your escrow officer to confirm your buyer client's wishes on this topic. Any other questions? If you feel free, if you don't want to type it, we do have a few more minutes. So if you don't want to type it in, feel free to unmute and just ask. I know typing sometimes. Oh, there's another one. You got that, Jen?
Yep, I got it. James is asking, I just completed a Measure 49 partition for a client of a 70-acre parcel, zoned F2, designated forest land for taxation. The property was partially logged and extensively replanted. A stocking survey has been completed and the property meets ODF standards. I'm assuming the 65 acres will continue to qualify for the forest deferral program, but the 2-acre parcels will no longer qualify though. They have been replanted. Any thoughts on this?
So the 2-acre tax lots could potentially qualify if there's a contiguous tax lot that is in either designated forest deferral or small tract. But once you put a house on a 2-acre tax lot, it would no longer meet unless it does have that contiguous, just because per state statute, we have to remove 1 acre for the home site. So then it would fall below that 2-acre minimum for designated.
Did that answer that question, James?
Yeah, it did. I just following up on that. There's a 5-year reach back on that or 10-year on the deferred taxes.
Is it currently in designated forest deferral or small tract?
It's designated forest land.
Okay, so then it would be a 5-year look back.
5. Okay. All right. And for the payment of the $100 fee, pardon me, we can ask you to calculate what that look back tax will be. Man, sorry. Okay. Could we just go ahead and pay it and get it out of that classification at this time?
I mean, you can request to have it removed, and we don't charge a fee for that. But if you're just looking to find out what that, back tax liability would be if it was disqualified, then yeah, we can definitely calculate that for you.
Okay. Well, I anticipate these are going to be sold, and I think, any buyer is going to say, hey, what's this going to amount to, and who's going to pay it? So, yeah, well, okay. All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate the presentation today.
Yeah, of course.
We have a question from Fred. He's asking, what about a switch from STF to forest deferral, as in the situation where a large forest land owner buys a property in STF? The difference between the standard deferral, what's the difference between the standard deferral tax rate?
Yep. So when what the state calls a large timber owner purchases a property that is currently in small tract forest land, we do have to disqualify the small tract forest land from that property. But as long as it's meeting the requirements for designated forest deferral, it will automatically default to the designated forest deferral program. The back tax liability for that is a 10-year look back, but it's going from small tract to designated forest deferral. So it's a much smaller amount as opposed from going small tract to valuing at market. So it's just that 20% difference between designated forest deferral and small tract.
Got it. Okay. And Erica is asking, is there a big game habitat overlay map available in Lane County for F2 land?
There is. So that is going to be on our land management website, but I can definitely include it in this slideshow as a resource so that you guys can have that link on there, because that is a big one.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Oh,
can I ask one? Can you elaborate a little bit on how that's working these days, the new restrictions for the big game on land?
Yeah, so with that one, unfortunately, we're going to have to direct you guys to land management, just because we were, not, when it comes to the big game overlay, it's not going to affect a farm or forest deferral or the way that a property is being, classified or valued. But that is definitely one that you'd want to check in with land management about.
anything else? I just want to thank your whole team for, we're getting lots of amazing comments about what a great presentation it was and this class was. But thank you guys all for coming together and teaching this class for us. We here, our Western team appreciates the value. Like I said, we have all of our team members, all of our escrow officers on the call as well, as they're being educated just as our clients are. So we appreciate it. And I'll get the PowerPoint from the Lane County team and get it out to everybody, and we'll get it posted up on our YouTube in case you want to rewatch anything. Just so you know, we will be on, I was just looking it up, on January 16th will be our next class, and that'll be legal lots. I haven't received the full description yet. I'll be working with our presenter, Jed Truitt. And so that'll be a legal lot class, and he'll be getting me some more points on that as we get through the holidays. We will also be having a Cottage Grove class on January 21st, and that'll be in Cottage Grove in person, and that topic, you'll be seeing it come in through your email. So just through the holidays, be watching for that. Our Western Title team tries to continue to bring new classes and continue to bring you education. So if you have any suggestions on a class that you would like to see in 2025, please let me know. I would love to get it scheduled for you. And if there's anything we can assist you with, if you're looking for any kind of tool or product with looking at your 2025 goals, I'm your person. I'll get you set up and see how I can assist you with reaching that goal, those goals. And we look forward to closing your future transactions, and happy holidays. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, team.
Thank you.